Okay, all right, let us get underway. Good morning, everybody. For those of you who stuck around from the previous panel, thanks for staying. Again, I am Paul Zeidman. I'm a San Francisco-based screenwriter and also have a blog about screenwriting, MaximumZ.blog, and I also am part of a podcast, the Creative Writing Life podcast, where we talk to writers of all genres and mediums. And please give it a listen, give it a read. But what's that? Oh, I'm sorry. My blog is called Maximum Z. It's just MaximumZ.blog. I've been doing that since 2009. And the podcast is called the Creative Writing Life Podcast, available on most of your podcasting platforms. So let us get underway. So this is the I've written a script, now what panel. And no slight against Kaia. We were supposed to originally have 3 panelists, but 2 of them were unable to make it today. But Kaia is a font of screenwriting and writing information and knowledge, and not too much pressure on you. But Kaia, it's Kaia Alexander. I would love for you to introduce yourself, and please, go ahead.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good morning. So I started my journey in the entertainment business as a development exec, which means I was a buyer. And we made some movies in the early aughts, like 2005, 2006, 2007. I worked for a company called Inferno, and I was senior Akita, and we made the movie Hachi, A Dog's Tale. Have you seen Hachi, Hachiko? Yeah, so with Richard Gere. That was one of the first movies that I gave notes on, so shout out to Hachi. Then also Bay Area, I did Peaceful Warrior. That was a book that I really loved in high school, actually, and we were looking for movies to make, and I said, I really love this book by Dan Millman. Let's do that one. And it turned out Richard Gere had it was actually, Nick Nolte had the rights, so we did that movie. There was a number of others. And after that, I went to work for comedian Gary Shandling. You know Gary Shandling? Yes. I really miss him. He really informed everything I do and everything I do today. In the pandemic, I decided to start supporting writers. I wanted to give back more. I wanted to help especially women and BIPOC writers who we do not have enough of in Hollywood. As you may know, the stats are still not great. I'm bi and queer, also stats not great for the LGBTQ community in Hollywood, so I'm really here to try to make a difference, or as my therapist says, you're trying to put the heart in a heartless industry. And now I'm also producing. So between a little bit of writing on my own, I'm a published novelist with HarperCollins for my first book years ago called Written in the Ashes. And also newly screenwriting as well. So I'm dabbling a little bit, I'm teaching a bit. I founded the Entertainment Business School in the pandemic, and I support a lot of writers. They're my favorite people on earth. Writers are the best. And they come through my school, and I try to help them get set up with careers, whether working in television or working in film, really on the career path. You know, how do I sell my script, but also how do I become a working writer, like Paul was saying, you know, a member of the guild, things like that.
Okay, that's great. So the panel it's I've written a script, now what? So you have a script ready, and a lot of writers they're not sure what to do, where to go. I mean, there's so many avenues you could take. So just speaking from my experience, I've completed a draft, did a little polish on it, and then I go out seeking notes and feedback. And I found it very beneficial that it's taken me a while, but I've built up my own support network of other writers. And so I can get their feedback from them. What is your take on writers seeking feedback? I mean, there's the writing community, but there's an abundance of screenwriting consultants and gurus out there. Do you have a particular preference, or do you help guide people, or do you say, oh no, you don't want to do that, you want to go in this direction?
Great question. How many of you have a screenplay? Raise your hand, let me see. Oh, that's like most of you. That's really great. How many of you are not sure what to do with your screenplay?
Yeah.
That's why you're here. So there are a lot of next steps. What Paul touched on was having a wolf pack. That's what I call it. If you have a wolf pack of fellow writers, producers, folks who you trust, who you can share drafts with, get feedback on, and then take it from there. Once you know that you have a script that's really industry ready, that is a very high bar. It's really, I think, hard to get a script to industry ready level. There's a lot of writers who will test out if their script is industry ready in contests, because if you enter the Nickel or the Page or Austin, you can see how your script, plays against the others. As a development exec, so as a buyer, we were always looking for screenplays that were really high concept, great story, great concept, and a script that pulls it all together really, really well. Using script consultants can help you get your script to that next level. I work with a bunch. I recommend a few that I often will use myself, and even tell my students, hey, I really trust this person. It's great to have those eyes, Paul, on your screenplay. Like, what has your wolf pack caught recently for you as you've been sharing scripts? What have they discovered about your screenplays?
That a lot of them say there's a very distinct voice, that you can tell it was something I wrote.
Oh, that's great.
And the thing is, I like to say I love praise, but I need criticism. Because, you're gonna love your script, but you want other people to like it as much as you do, and it's very hard to be objective about your own material.
It really is.
I can find typos, and I can see, okay, I have to get rid of that one word that's taking up a line, but what if I'm not seeing that this character's arc isn't complete enough, that it's too limited, and I can trust these other writers who I asked to read my script. Okay, read this, be brutally honest, because that's part of being a writer, is that you can't just have a thick skin, you have to be bulletproof. That you're gonna have people say, this is shit, and you can't just say, no, it's not. you can't do that. You have to say, okay, why do you think it's shit? That you have to be able to almost take a step back. And I've had writers like this script that I can't even tell you what draft it is of this script, probably like 20th or 21st, because there have been so many changes and notes that I've received, and that people have said, okay, I've had several people point out like this one story detail that just wasn't working for them. And so I had to be like, okay, I thought it worked, but okay, taking what they said into consideration, I have to read it, okay, why are they saying that? And it's as the saying goes, it's the note behind the note, that you have to be able to analyze why it's not working, and then try to figure out, how can I make this work but still get to the same point or have the same impact that I was originally set out for.
Yeah, I love that. And his answer is really right. So it's a two-pronged answer, because it's craft on the one side. I personally think screenplays are harder than novels. They're really, really hard. And then on the other side, it's the business. Let me tell you a story about Chip. I have a student who's a case study that I think might help you understand ways of coming into the industry. So I run the Entertainment Business School, that's my company, and one of the students who was applying now about a year ago came in and he said, look, I'm retiring from the intelligence community. I have a lot of stories, I have screenplays, and I want to get into the industry, but I don't know how. And I said, well, listen, I can't make any promises, but all day, every day, you're who Hollywood wants, because you have stories. You're coming in from a different career, you have experience, you have the whole legacy behind you of fantastic stories. So that's a great scenario for Hollywood, because they love it when you come in with outside stories. So he said, well, I'm going to sign up for the school and I want to get a manager. It's not something I promise, but it is a great way to move forward in the industry, is working with a manager, working with producers to help bring your projects forward. He wants to work in television. So we worked on crafting his query. It's very similar to querying book and lit agents is querying managers. So we really worked on his query. We picked out which of his pilots, which is that first episode of his show that he wanted to query with, and positioned his expertise, his bio, his story, his log line for your screenplay. We worked to death on his log line, because that's what has to go with your screenplay through the whole, career of your story. And then we sent it out to 100 managers. I should say he sent it out to 100 managers. There's a few websites that you can use. If you're querying blind, use Done Deal Pro and Virtual Pitch Fest, because they'll tell you who is actually open to cold queries. Hollywood is cruel, expect a lot of ghosting. You won't hear back from most of them. And I told him this too. I said, even though you're who Hollywood is looking for, out of 100 queries, you might get 5 replies. Well, he had 8 read requests from his 100 queries. And
two again.
Oh, it's one is Done Deal Pro, and the other one is Virtual Pitch Fest.
yeah, Virtual Pitch Fest. So out of the 8 read requests, one manager, Reed requested him on Friday, and on Monday called him and said, I want to represent you. And that manager had really great traction, had some writers who had written Mulan and some other great projects, and he also represented one of the showrunners from Hawaii Five-0. And he said, well, the showrunner is really looking for spy stories. Let's have you guys meet and see if you get along. So long story short, it's February, and Chip is right now, coming from nowhere, nothing, into this industry. He's right now been pitching every major network in the industry. Because of those relationships and those connections, he's been taking out it's a procedural. It's like a 20-episode NCIS type of show. That is a best case scenario, but it is like you can come from nowhere and do it really smart and end up square in the middle of where you want to be with your writing career.
And I will also touch on that a little bit, is that I highly suggest subscribing to IMDb Pro. I want to say it's like maybe like $100 a year.
It is.
Okay, but that gives you access to a ton of contact information for agents and managers and production companies, and you can look up like who made whatever movie, and if you want to say, oh, I want to contact the executive producer of such and such movie, they're 9 times out of 10 they will have contact information there. It might be just a phone number, but also from my experience in querying that you get a lot of ghosting, and sometimes you get the email back that says no such email exists. So it's
that happens too.
That you have to really be selective, do your homework, because I've seen writers who are just like, okay, I've got this script and I'm going to email every manager I can find. Well, this manager specializes in horror, they're not going to be interested in your rom-com.
Right.
So you have to do your homework. And the best advice I can give about that, like think of 10 movies that are similar to what you've written. Then find the people who made that movie, the producers and the executive producers, and you take your shot. Send them a query, say, hey, you worked on this movie and I have this script which is like that. It's got a main character just like you're the lead in this movie you produced. Would you be interested in taking a look? And the other thing about queries, don't send a novel of a letter. Keep it as succinct and to the point as possible, because if you don't have their attention right away, they're just going to delete it.
Yeah, it's sad, it's true. But the producers are looking for you, and he mentioned IMDb Pro. That's a great resource. So whatever movie you just watched that you love, whatever show that you just watched that you love, that you feel like, oh, that's like my work, just go on IMDb Pro and look at who the producers were. There'll be 10 of them. There may be some that are kind of famous, they're not going to respond to you. But there may be some that are lower down at the associate producer, co-producer level, and they might get back to you because they're looking for their next project. They want to rise up through the ranks to get higher in their own career.
Okay, we'll get to questions in just one second, okay? The other thing that you mentioned earlier is about contests. And there are a ton of screenwriting contests, and there's only a handful, though, that the industry really pays attention to. The first is the Nickel, NICHOLL. That's the one that the Academy does. The people who do the Oscars, and that's the big one. And the other 2 big ones, there's Page International, and the other one is the Austin Film Festival. And what's great, the Nickel just started this last year, that they started limiting it to 1 script per person, because people would send in like 5 scripts. And Austin and Page still do that, but Nickel has limited it to 1 script, and this year they have a cutoff point now. They're only accepting 5,500 scripts, because they used to get like 8,000 a year. And last I checked a couple of days ago, they were up to like 1,500 had already been submitted. So I think March 1st is the early bird deadline. So if you have a script and you think, I want to take my shot, I'm going to spend my $50 and send it into the Nickel, you can. But I think the longer you wait, the less chance you have of being able to make that cutoff. But the one thing about contests is that a lot of them offer, there's the straight up registration fee, but a lot of them also offer notes. So if you're entering a contest, everybody hopes they win, but some people enter a contest just so they can get the feedback, the notes on their script back. And I've had a mixed bag of that. I've gotten some great comments, and I also had one which pretty much summed up, I read the script. That was the summation of the notes. So what is your thought on, I guess, script or script feedback from contest? I know it's, I mean, my take is it's hit or miss.
It is very hit or miss. This industry is a lot of noise. It's very competitive. You know, your actual competition are celebrities. They want the buyers' dollars too. So for you to stand out and show that you have that strength, if you go the contest route, you really have to be a finalist. Or you have to win. It's like the Olympics. You got a podium or else nobody's gonna notice. It's tough, it's that hard. So I don't as much love the contest route. I love more the producer route, like going to IMDb Pro, looking up producers, querying agents. There's a few other wonderful companies that support writers that I know the owners, I really love them. I love ISA. The International Screenwriting Association. They support new screenwriters and really help bring you up. As a coach, one of my clients right now won their latest award, and they've been really working hard to help him find a manager, which is great. I also love roadmap writers. They're wonderful. They really help their writers find managers. Joey, who owns that company, matchmakes all day, every day. He's like, oh, I think you'd be perfect for this person. And to have someone in there who's really supporting you to find who your best rep is huge. Because roadmap writers. And then there's me, entertainment business school. I help others too. But yeah, finding your right producers, your right reps, and really having a strategy and not just entering into the industry blind is what we're talking about. Whether it's contests, producers, going after manager, making sure that you're like, I want to work on my strategy and ultimately not do it alone. Because finding producers, finding a manager, working with peer writers who are reading your scripts, giving you notes, all of that is what I call finding your wolf pack. Because in Hollywood, it's not like being a novelist. You need a whole team. There's a whole group around you who are all part of making this movie come to life, making this TV show come to life. So you need to find those people, your team, your partners in believing.
One of the things I wanted to touch on that Kaia also has a newsletter that she sends out, and there was one I think was either.
Do you mean my podcast?
No, it was an email I got. I thought it was a newsletter. It was either this week or last week. And it was pretty,
avoiding scams one.
Yes,
yeah.
I thought it was brilliant because there are so many untrustworthy people out there who are more than happy to take your money and give you nothing in return. That you send in your couple of $100 and they'll promise you everything. You'll send your money. You will never hear from them again. So I just was hoping you could touch on that a little bit because I just thought it was so helpful. And a lot of writers, especially ones just starting out, they're desperate to make it. They want to get success. Sometimes they think it's the easy way, but there is no easy way. And so there are a lot of people who are out there very predatory in how they're going to take advantage of you. And so if you could touch on that a little bit.
Sure. We'll simplify it for you. As a writer, you should never, ever, ever pay a producer to take your script out to the market. That is a scam, period, the end. As a writer, if you have a screenplay and you work with a producer, they need to give you a contract of some kind on your script in order to take it out to the market. So that's either going to be one of two things, an option agreement or a shopping agreement. That's legit. If a producer approaches you and says, pay me $1,000 and I'm going to take it to Amblin, you're like, oh, you're a fake. And they may have a website, they may have a company, they may have a couple people working for them, but the whole thing is a grift. It's not illegal. It's not illegal, but it's not how the industry works. So a lot of writers just fall in and they go, oh, I just paid all this money and I'm all excited because it's going to Hollywood. And it's like, oh no, that's one of those scammers. And they're out there. So protecting yourself, protecting your interests, and just knowing as you get involved with others, you just approach it wisely and say, well, what's the deal that you're offering me? And let them talk and find out what kind of deal they're offering and find out what their relationships are. Who would they take, what production companies, who would they take your screenplay to, who's gonna see it, who are their partners, and you can interview them as well to get a sense of it. This is kind of how I circled back into the industry, Paul, because I had left it for a while. And in the pandemic, I started talking with writers more on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it now.
Twitter, calling it Twitter.
Twitter X. Started talking with more writers on Twitter, and I was hearing about these scams. I was hearing about writers getting taken advantage of. And I hear about new ones all the time. Since I put out that newsletter, I had like 6 write me back and go, oh God, well, what about this and what about that? So yeah, it's common. There are predators out there, so you want to protect yourself. But no legitimate producer will ever take advantage of a writer. I'm newly producing with my partner, Scott Gardenauer, and you found us a wonderful project. We're doing a movie about Ponzi. If you look up my IMDb, the actual guy Ponzi, who the Ponzi scheme plan is based on, his name is Charles Ponzi. So that's the movie that we're working on together right now. And I found the writer. I love the writer. His name is Richard. He came off of the show Outlander. And he's so brilliant. We found that script, that project. I brought it to Scott. Richard was paid to adapt the book. And if you go to, this is a great resource. You don't have to be a Writers Guild member to go to the website of the Writers Guild and look at what the minimums are for the rates for how much screenwriters get paid. Because then you can see, well, that's a comp for me. If I'm newly coming into the industry, I should get, it's like $80,000 to adapt a book into a screenplay. And then that's a positioning point. So if you're pre-guild, we call it, you'll be coming in, and a producer might say, well, I'm happy that you're not a guild member because I don't have to pay you so much money. But what if I pay you just slightly under that amount? Well, the great news is you're gonna get, hopefully, thousands of dollars. You'll be able to become a guild member because as soon as a legitimate producer pays you, you go to the Writers Guild and say, hey, I've got something in production, and you'll be able to join. And then also you can negotiate based off of those numbers. And it's all very clearly laid out, exactly how much writers get paid for an episode of television, for an original feature, for an adapted feature, and that gives you a baseline of what you can negotiate for.
Okay, great stuff. So one of the things I've always touted is that a writer has to be their own marketing department. That it's really up to you to get your material out there. As we talked about in the previous panel, social media, a huge boon that I would not have connected with as many writers that I know that I do without the benefit of social media. I mean, I know writers literally around the world, not only in the US and Canada, but more than a few in Europe and Australia, and a couple of people in the Japan area that they've just, as you said, that's my wolf pack, just have to be a couple of thousand people. And it's really helpful. And that if people get to know you, and it's really about relationships, that make yourself someone that someone else would want to work with. Not just another writer, but also people in the industry. If you come off as a pompous jerk, they're not going to want to deal with you.
I imagine you meet a lot of people through your podcast too, don't you? I know I do.
I do, but I've been doing the social media longer, and I think that's a little more direct because I can DM someone who's like in Wisconsin, and I'll get a response back to them in 5 minutes, right. That sort of thing. But it's really about establishing professional relationships, even if it's just, it's friendly, but you also don't be the kind of writer who says, hi, it's nice to meet you, I want you to help me. That your initial response is gonna be like, okay, thanks, bye. That you want to, I always make it about the other person. Yes, when I meet them, I'll be, hey, how are you? What are you working on? Tell me about it. And that helps break the ice. It also indicates that I'm not really talking to you because I want something out of you. I really, I just like talking to people. I like networking and getting to know other writers because everybody has a unique story, and I love hearing about those stories. And that makes them trust me more. And also that after I've established this relationship with people, I'm more comfortable going to them and saying, hey, I've got this, I just finished the latest draft. If you have the time, would you be able to read it? I don't come to say, hey, hey, Kaia, I got the script, I need you to read it. Yeah. She's busy, she's got a life, she's got a job, that she's not just gonna say, oh, I'll drop everything and get to this right away. That I always try to be as considerate for the other person. And I've had more than a few, especially through LinkedIn, that I've had writers I don't know, they'll contact me and say, hey, I love your stuff, can you read my script? Like, I don't know who you are. And I actually had this one guy started to ask me questions, and he sounded like he wanted a consultant, and I really didn't have the time or the interest at the time. I said, I can refer you to a couple of people. And he said, great, I'll send you an NDA for the script. I said, I didn't say I was going to read it. I just said I can give you some names. And I mentioned I run this blog about screenwriting, and a couple of years ago I wrote one called "Your Desperation is Showing," because people were just I get the enthusiasm, I get the excitement, but you have to be a grown-up about this. You have to take a professional approach. You have to present yourself as someone that not only am I interested in talking to you, but I'd be interested in working with you on your stuff. That if once we get to, like, we've established a rapport, that yes, I'm happy to read your stuff, but don't just come to me out of the blue and say, and shove your script in my face and say, I want you to read this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as a producer, my role is to create the project, obviously get it into production, but I'll tell you honestly, I'm also a priest and a therapist and an Army general sergeant. And at any given moment, anyone on my team is calling me and needs that part of me. You know, they're getting a divorce, their kid just is trying to drop out of school, or they have COVID and the puppy just broke its leg. These are all real things from my team. So I don't want to give, I mean, I'm a single parent, I have a 12-year-old. I only have so much in my tank of how much I can give, and I give big, I give deep. I want to make sure I take care of everybody who I'm working with. And I can't do that for everybody. So when someone comes into work, maybe wants to work with me, wants me to produce their work, how they approach me is everything. If they're like, hey, I love your show, Hollywood Wolfpack, you just seem like such a cool person, I want to get to know you better, can we have a virtual coffee? In my company, the first hire that I made for my chief of biz dev is a wonderful young black man named Kawan, and he's disabled, and he reached out and he was like, how can I make your life better? And I was like, what? Oh my God. Like, we had a virtual coffee, I'm crying, I'm like, I fucking love you, like, how can I just hire you? You know, like, he's just such a giver. And in an industry full of takers, when you are a giver, you stand out, because everybody needs something in this industry. What did he have to give me? He's a writer, he's written a wonderful memoir, and called Favor, and he's working on, you know, getting staffed on Harry Potter, which is his like life goal. And I'm just supporting him, he's supporting me, we're working together. I'm going, how can I, you know, make another introduction for you to a development exec or to somebody who can help your career go forward? Why? Because he's showing up every day going, how can I help you? How can I make your life better? I'll work with anybody like that in the industry. Those are the writers I'm looking for. Those are the people on my team that I'm looking for, like Paul said, how people approach you, even in a cold DM. It really makes a difference. I'm a big fan of the virtual coffee. Get to know people. Find out if you have chemistry. And then pick your wolf pack based on who you love. Who do you want to be in the trenches with? Who do you really care about? And it's got to kind of really be authentic, because this industry is so hard, it's so brutal, it'll take a lot out of you, and you really want comrades in arms. It's tough. You want people who you trust, who you can let your hair down with, who you can be real with, who are going to support you as you bring your greatest, biggest dreams to life.
Yeah, I want to touch on that. That I was at the Austin Film Festival back in October, and they have all these events, and one of them was a roundtable with managers. And so I got to talk to a guy from Bellevue, and
Was it John?
Zach.
Zach, yeah.
Yeah. And so we were allowed to go. Everybody in the table was allowed to ask one question, but it couldn't be, "Hey, will you read my script?" Because that's what your immediate thought is. And so I've always wondered this, that a lot of writers, they think as soon as I get an agent or manager, I'm set. I don't have to do anything. I can just sit home and write and send in my script when it's ready, and they're going to get a big fat contract.
Fantasy.
As I say, not the case. And so when it came to my turn, I said, what can the writer do? If you have a new client, a writer, what can they do to make your job easier? And he said, that's such a great question. And he went into the writer has to do almost as much, if not more, legwork than the manager does. That, you know, the manager has all these other clients. They can't just, and they have a life too. And so if you're the writer, you have to keep pursuing leads. Like maybe there's a director you think might be interested in the script, or a producer, or somebody, that if you can make somebody else's job easier, that's a good reflection on you, because that means you're definitely the team player, and that you are as committed to this. It's your baby that you're trying to get out there. So you really want to be as helpful to the process as you can.
It's a social business. I guess the encouragement that I could give you is I'm about as introverted as it gets, social anxiety and all the rest. And there are those who are just like me who are like, I'll take a beta blocker and go to the meeting. You know, like whatever it takes to do the social side. It's not like writing books. It is a very social business. So you're in it to make friends in hopefully an authentic way. And it takes time, it's long game. It can take years to build those relationships like anything. But those of us who stick with it, we really love it. We find it's worth it.
Exactly. Like, for the most part, I am a very keep to myself kind of person, but when I went to Austin, I told myself I'm not going to sit in my hotel room and just like feel sorry for myself. There's a lot of venues that you get to know other writers, and I told myself, I'm just going to go out there because everybody wears a badge like this. It has your name, and if your script was like a second rounder, which is kind of like quarterfinalist or semifinalist, that people love to talk about their stuff. So I would go up and say like, oh hey Kaia, hey Paul, I'm from San Francisco. Tell me about your script. It's a second rounder. And they're like, oh well, and they go into their 5-second pitch, and one guy just has to learn that because he was clocking in about 2 minutes for his pitch, and I had lost interest after about 15 seconds, but I was being nice. And I got to know so many people, and I got to connect with a lot of people I knew on social media, and I got to meet them in person for the first time. But I met at least 24 people. I had no idea who they were, but they were happy to talk because you wait in a lot of lines at these kinds of things. And just writers like to talk about their work. And if you can talk about your work, but also be really interested in what the other person's project is, because you don't want to give the impression that you're just out to get something from them. If you show genuine interest, and I mean, I'm just lucky I'm that kind of person, that works to your advantage, and they will remember you as being a nice person. They're not going to remember you. You would rather they remember you for that rather than being a total jerk. Okay, so I think we have about 10 minutes. Okay, so we will open the floor to questions. Anyone with a question, please. We'll start in the front row with Norm.
I wrote 2 scripts that made the quarterfinals of Austin and Atlanta, and I just want to know if that's an asset or how much that is.
I think it really depends on what you want to do with it. That if you want to pursue representation, that you can send it with the subject line, second rounder Austin, and then have your query letter, and really you have to put it out there and just see what happens. Okay. Some people will be interested, and if the concept of the script grabs them, then you're more likely to get a response. But 9 times out of 10 you'll probably get thanks, and just not for me, or we've already got something on it like that in development.
I would send it to the managers. Is that?
It's really up to you. If you can go after managers, but again, do your research with IMDb Pro, and if like I said, if there's a couple movies that are similar to your story, with IMDb Pro you can get the contact information for the executive producers, and see if there is contact information for them to. And you have to call, and sometimes there'll be a lot more people are saying no unsolicited material. So it's hard, but if you keep at it, you might be able to break through.
I just want to say the roadmap is wonderful.
They are. Joey is the sweetest man you will ever have contact with. Yes, Miss.
I have a question about recommendation to query managers. I guess I was wondering why managers instead of agents? For example, in trad publishing, if you have a book deal that's pretty significant, most agencies will have a film agent on staff who then represents your work and tries to get you some sort of option deal. So I was curious about why you always mention reaching out to managers and producers, but you never really say anything about finding a film agent. Why is that?
Yeah, there's a saying in this industry that you don't find agents, they find you. And the reason why is in Hollywood, agents are really representing deals. They have a lot of deal flow, and they're highly competitive in looking for the biggest deals they possibly can get. So if your book is a New York Times bestseller, absolutely, you're going to be able to bring a film agent onto your team. Remember, every time you bring on another rep, you're giving out another piece of your own pie. So if you have an agent, 10%, manager, 10%, an entertainment attorney, 5%. You just gave up 25% of your paycheck to your team, and then you got to pay taxes on top of that, and then the guild fees. So it carves it out. Your manager is going to be with you long time for your career. Usually your publicist too, but you have to get to a really high level to have a publicist. Your manager is hopefully going to be with you for life. I mean, I certainly know some who writers who change managers, but ideally you get one that's really in your corner, rooting for you, helping you, making those introductions for you, and managing your whole career long term. Agents tend to be more transactional. They're looking at their quarterly sheets of who's making them the most money, and they will drop writers really fast if they're not making a money in that quarterly report. So by the time you are agent ready as a writer, you need to have a lot of deal flow. You need to have like, hey, I set up this show, I got that movie in production. Like there's a lot happening because the agent's going, oh good, I'm gonna get my 10% off of like everything that you're doing. And then you're appealing to them. We call them sharks for a reason. They need blood in the water, and they like a lot of blood in the water.
I've always seen it that agents handle the product and managers handle the talent. So that she was saying that you were more likely to have a manager long term, and the agent is more interested in your script, while the manager is more interested in you and what you can write. Okay? All right. Actually, we go lady in the back. Yes?
Earlier, Kaia, you mentioned a script consultant. So I was wondering, how does one connect with a script consultant?
Wow, that's a loaded question. If you don't mind.
Do you want me to? I can list off a few people who I really like, who have great reputations. I love Jen Grisanti, Grinsanti. I think Jen Grisanti is great. I love Danny Manis.
No bullscript.
Yeah, no bullscript. Danny's part of our queer community. So, and I write a lot of LGBTQ scripts, so I always appreciate his eyes, especially on those scripts. MANUS. I also like Katie White. She's Katie White Writes at Gmail. She was an NCIS writer, and she's brilliant. She's ND, she's neurodiverse, so she brings a really interesting perspective as a script consultant. Who else is good? There's a lot of them.
Yeah, well, real quick, I don't want to take away the questions. That a couple of years, almost 10 years ago, I did a series of interviews with script consultants on my blog. Originally, my research, I found 5, but then I kept finding more and more people, so that 5 then became 50.
Oh, you have a whole list?
Oh, yeah.
So contact him for the list.
Yeah, please go to my blog. I need views. Andrew Hilton is another good. He's called the Screenplay Mechanic.
I've heard good things about him.
Yeah,
I've heard really good things.
And he's a really nice guy. He likes to surf too.
What's the blog title?
It's a Maximum Z. It's maximumz.blog. Just maximum in the letter Z. That's all. Yes. Sorry.
Is there an ideal script length, say 160 pages or less?
Well, one page usually equals about a minute. So
of screen time.
Usually, if it's a longer script, that's going to be a turnoff because someone doesn't want to sit down and open a PDF. Oh my God, this is 160 pages. That if you can whittle that down to like even 120 or 115.
Do you mean for a feature, like for a movie, full length? Yeah.
Yeah, and you can't say, well, Scorsese did, Killers of the Flower Moon. That was 3.5 hours long. Yeah, that's also Martin Scorsese. Yeah. So you want to try to keep it to a reasonable length. It used to be like 100 to 110 was preferred. Now it's even like 95 to 105 pages.
Under 120 pages is good.
Okay.
We go to 11:15.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Yes, in the back of the glasses.
Yes. So what if you have a package, like you have an actress who wants to play the antagonist in the script, you have a reputable director, but you're looking for a producer. How do you go about doing that? If you go to IMDb and try and find that person and you query them and you say, I have this person, this director, this actress who already wants to do the film.
You can go to a producer. You actually might have better luck going to an agent because if there's more of a package already put together, that's eliminated some of the work for them. They're also probably going to ask, do you have funding?
No.
Okay.
We need funding in order to, well, it's set in Italy and so they have tax write-offs, that kind of thing.
Tax
Well, we'll do
incentives.
it.
We call that soft money as a producer. Are you gonna set it in Italy? Is it,
Yes.
that's where it's meant to be filmed?
It's set in
Um,
Italy, so you need an American producer, and that's where we stop.
Sure, yeah, I mean, you're just gonna have to get really busy on the phone and make your producer lists, toggling between IMDb Pro, making your list of producers, and probably going to LinkedIn, which is where a lot of producers are, and just writing them notes. Hey, I've got the perfect project for you. We have it packaged, we have this fabulous director and actress, and we're looking for somebody to take it over to Italy, who might have some Italian relationships. I mean, I would start looking at so have you seen My Brilliant Friend?
No.
That's the first place I would go, because everybody working on My Brilliant Friend is both sides. It's Italy, it's set in Italy, it's an Italian production, but it's also got American writers and American producers. So I would start there and say, first watch it. Hopefully you love it, and then you can say, oh my gosh, I love My Brilliant Friend, which is the Elena Ferrante novel adaptation, and then say, also I like the question, who do you know? I have this project that would be really great. We're looking for a producer in America who can work in Italy. Who do you know who you think may be right for this? And in Hollywood, we answer those questions all day, every day. It's easier to ask, who do you know who could help me, than would you help me?
And also, as we said in the previous panel, the producer might say, does it have to be set in Italy? Could you film it in New York?
Well,
There's good soft money
it has
tax
to be in
incentives.
Europe somewhere.
Depends on the producer.
Yeah, it depends on the producer. I don't know what the tax incentives are there right now, but in case you didn't know this, foreign tax credits can be really amazing. In Ireland, it's like 36% of your budget paid in tax rebates, meaning you just get that money. And it varies country by country, city by city, and it changes every year. Every country has a film commissioner. If you go to some of the film markets like AFM or Berlin or TIFF or Cannes, all the countries bring a table, bring a booth, bring a flat screen, because they want to show you, hey, come make your movie in our country. If you look at what Outlander did for Scotland, it increased tourism 26% to the country. So Scotland's like, we have amazing tax incentives. Please come make your stuff here. And you can figure that out. So Italy, I've heard, has really good ones. So you're looking for that producer who might have those relationships, who knows, oh yeah, I have relationships over there who can help get that set up. Some of the movies that we've been working on, that my producing partner Scott has been working on, he had a movie last year that was doubling for another location, but it was filmed in Serbia, because the tax credits are so freaking good and they can build anything to look like another country. So he ended up setting up that movie there, and Serbia has doubled for Japan and all kinds of other places. It's the magic of the movie.
I think there was a movie that was set in Detroit.
Right.
And they filmed it in Serbia. You got me. Yes, Lee with the glasses.
So I'm also a published author with HarperCollins, and one of the things I've found is that gender matters when you are pitching your story, or when your agent is pitching your story, or whoever's buying it, the acquisition editor. And I'm wondering if the same thing is also true of screenwriting.
You mean the gender of the novelist? Say more about that to me.
So I'm a woman of color. It's easier for my work to sell with an editor who is a woman, or a woman also of color. Does the same thing happen in the screenwriting world?
I mean, the biases are awful. Hollywood is noted for not being good about this, and we are not getting better. It's a personal cause of mine. If you haven't found it yet, go to Gina Davis's Institute of Gender on Media Studies. She's doing all kinds of incredible research and work to make sure we have more representation. But of my students who I support, especially people of color, they get into a room maybe to sell something and they're told, well, yeah, we just couldn't connect to this material because, hi, it's a room full of white guy development execs. So they don't connect to the material, and that's a bias, and they don't even realize it. So we're trying to create more understanding that there's an audience there for it. This every year is different. I'm a business analyst. I analyze the media all the time. And this year is a little different because it is an election year. And we're coming off of the industry strikes, and last year the industry lost 26% of its jobs. That's against what's happening nationally, where we're adding jobs. but not in media. That's because the streaming bubble burst. So we've left peak TV, and now we're in an era of like the recalibration. So this year sucks for representation. We're seeing queer shows get canceled, Black shows get canceled. I'm personally really angry about it. I call it productive rage because I'm like, I'm gonna do something about it. So we're trying to create more education, more bias education. We're trying to get more women of color in those executive seats, because when those executive seats are occupied by women of color and people of color, LGBTQ, then they know how to embrace the whole, all of humanity and provide wonderful entertainment for all, a much broader and diverse audience. I don't think this is a year that we're going to progress on that, because we're seeing executives being safe and cautious and a little worried about what they buy. Why? Because it's an election year and they know Hollywood's very liberal, and we have not really been serving very well the flyover states. I know I'm in San Francisco, so I'm preaching to the choir. But this is, the execs are going, oh no, we're losing eyeballs like in Ohio. Like, so they're going, how can we create more shows for everybody? So what that means, and what I'm advising the writers who are with me in the Entertainment Business School, is whatever you're writing, this won't be a year to really push forward with diversity, but you can do it with characters. Because at least the execs are aware, okay, we need a gay character, we need a lesbian character, we need a Black character, we need more representation within the actual shows. So there's that awareness happening. So I just encourage you to really diversify your screenplays. Make sure they pass the Bechdel test, make sure that they have that broader appeal and have great representation in them. Those are the movies and shows that are more likely to get made. My latest screenplay is a feature set in Maui, where I used to live, a lot of Native Hawaiian representation and a lesbian story. And nobody gets this script. And I also know, okay, this is a year that is gonna be really hard to get this comedy set up. And that's okay. So those are the screenplays that you hold for the year when it is right to bring it out into the market, which I'm hoping is 2025, but it probably won't be 2024. Now we need to talk about something happy, because I know that I brought the room down, I'm sorry.
Okay, happy questions only, yes.
Kind of related to that, I've written a very queer, kind of subversive rom-com, and I thought that my best bet would be to start with contests that are looking specifically for diversity. Unfortunately, one of those contests gave me feedback where they misgendered my non-binary protagonist. So I'm wondering, from your perspective, is targeting those kinds of contests worth it? Should I not be intimidated by other ones, or will it be worse going that route? I know you also said that going the producer route would be preferred over the contest, so I wondered what your perspective on that.
What do you think? I know less about the contest. So as a buyer, when I was a development exec, I didn't even know that there were these contests. We were primarily working with managers and producers and agents who were bringing projects to us. But I know that you can break through at the contest level. The fellowships are better. If you can get into a writing fellowship, you actually have a lot more support, and all the networks offer them. NBC, CBS, applying to the fellowships, and it is fellowship season right now. They're looking for diversity. They are much better about awareness of BIPOC and LGBTQ, and they're actively looking for diversity. It's a hard time for the fellowships to be a white writer, and that's good. So there is a changing tide that is happening. I think it's on the Writers Guild website, there is a list of fellowships. If you find me after, I'll give you my email address. Any of you can email me, it's easy. It's Kaia@KaiaAlexander.com. And I can send you that list of fellowships as well, so that you can be working on your fellowship applications, because there's just a lot more support there.
And I also say that that's one person's opinion, or one person's comments about your script.
Yeah,
that
agreed.
You can send to 10 contests, you'll get 10 different opinions about your script. Some people might love it, some people might not understand it, and some people just might not like it at all. That you just have to okay, they didn't like it. If you can also say, what did they not like about it? But if that's about the characters, then you might have to just do a little reevaluation. But it's also how important is this feedback to you as the writer? But if someone else really likes it, use that as encouragement and try to seek other avenues that are similar to that.
It's a subjective business, and people just won't like it. That's okay, just next them quickly and get to the people who love your stuff.
Yeah, send it, forget it, move on to the next thing.
It was interesting because they seemed to like it, they just couldn't get the pronouns of the main character, right?
That's really more on them than really about the material.
Yeah.
Any other
Did my
questions?
mom read your screenplay?
Yes, in the back.
I have two quick questions. You mentioned about NDAs. So when we're trying to pitch to a manager or someone to do script reviews, is it a best practice to have them sign an NDA? And then my second question is around potential earnings. Let's say you get your writing picked up. What is the potential earnings there?
I can't really address the earnings, but about the NDA, a lot of managers are not going to make you, they might send a non-disclosure agreement for you to sign, but you do not send them one. No, because I just had a manager this past week that I queried them about my script and they sent the NDA. And so I sent in the NDA and then they said, okay, now you can send the script. But if you're the writer, you don't send the manager an NDA, say, you can read this, but I don't want you to share it. Because they're just gonna say, okay, I'm not gonna deal with this person anymore. But Kaia can address the earnings aspect of it.
I don't encounter NDAs very often, and I'll give you my attorney's answer. An email is something that you can utilize in a lawsuit. So if an email has a timestamp on it, that is like admissible evidence. So in a lot of cases, NDAs are just not necessary. I don't encounter them a lot, and I certainly don't use them as a producer. So they're not really that important. It's an idea industry. So as a development exec, we might get 10 scripts that are about the devil, that are different takes on the devil. The devil's a different character. Like, there's no way to submit that script and be like, it's my devil story. It's like, no, the devil's public domain. There's nothing we could do. And you might think we made this other movie that stole your movie, but we had 20 devil submissions, so we made that one. So it is a very challenging business, but you can protect your scripts by registering them at the Writers Guild, and you can protect them by putting them in through the Library of Congress. Those are places where you can actually protect your material, which I think is the underlying question behind the NDA. And in terms of earning, features or television?
Both. I'm very new at this stage.
Okay, sure. Let's talk television for a moment, because the opportunity to earn more is bigger in television than it is in features. Back in the day, there used to be this thing called points. Some of you might have heard of points, back-end points. They basically don't hardly exist anymore because of streaming. But like, for example, Tom Cruise, who is like a first dollar out box office producer, where he is actually getting first dollar gross out of the box office, meaning for every ticket sold, he's getting $1 off of those tickets sold personally, paid to him. That is like your best case scenario as a producer. Writers don't tend to get that. Producers do tend to get that, so does talent. So major talent, A-list talent. There was that sad story about Tom Hollander in the paper a couple weeks ago. Did you see it? Where they accidentally paid him Tom Holland's bonus. And he was like, I've never seen that much money in my life, in my entire career. Like millions of dollars in his bank account because that was Tom Holland's bonus. Oops. They had the same agent. It's terrible.
Just to put that in perspective, Tom Hollander plays Truman Capote on the new thing on FX. Tom Holland was Spider-Man.
Yeah, so terrible accounting error. So like the amount of money that's out there, if you get to the highest levels, is inconceivable to a lot of people. It's a lot of money. In television, that money comes to you if you're a show creator. So if you create a show, you get a paycheck off of every time a season is picked up, you get a paycheck off of every episode, even if you didn't write the episode. So they're getting all, if you think about Shonda Rhimes for a minute, right? Bridgerton and Grey's Anatomy and Scandal and everything. So she has all these shows up as a creator. She gets money every time she gets an episode and every time the episode airs. So that is a lot of what we call green envelopes coming to her doorstep from the Writers Guild. It's really impressive. If you add on being a producer of a show, every writer is a producer on their show. And sometimes actors are as well. I love Sex and the City. I love the reboot of it even more. And I've gone back to rewatching it, and I was occasionally Googling like the net worth of everybody on these shows. Sarah Jessica Parker is worth $200 million because she was an executive producer on the original Sex and the City. And when something like that goes into syndication, that is a lot of money. So if you're like, I want to be a career writer in the entertainment business, you want to be a show creator. These days in features, that's like not going to be as much money. Let's say you sell a Hallmark movie, and as a writer, the Hallmark movie is going to get made for $3 million. you're gonna get it in a step deal, so you'll get the initial fee to write the movie, then you'll probably get another fee when you write your second draft of the movie. You're gonna get another fee when the movie goes into production, and you might actually, at that point when it goes into production, get like 2% of the budget paid to you. So 2% of $3 million is part of that step deal, and then you might get bonused if the movie comes out, does really well. There could be a bonus built in. But that's not change your life money. That's not change your life money. So if you're writing biopics, if you're writing Hallmark, if you're writing smaller features, that's gonna be like your fun Hollywood side hustle. It's not gonna be like my mansion on the hill money. they're a little different.
Okay.
Long answer. But.
Okay, I wish we had more time for more questions, but unfortunately we have to wrap it up. So I want to thank Kaia Alexander for being here. If you have any questions, we have a little time before our next panel, so please come on up, and she has all of her contact information available, and she'd be more than happy to answer more questions.
Yeah, I'll hang out with you for a little bit, and I'm back this afternoon.
Yes, she
Thanks,
is.
Paul. Thank you, Paul.
All right, thanks everybody.